It's me, Nella, here with another edition of On the Couch. So today I decided to do a video about anxiety disorders. Let's get to it. Edit this out or whatever. Alright, so I want to start with I googled a statistic real quick about anxiety disorders. So it says Anxiety Association is where I got this information from. I pretty much just did a Google search, and it says that anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults in the United States age 18 and older, or 18.1% of the population every year. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable, yet only 36.9% of those suffering receive treatment. So I guess you guys are probably wondering by now, like, why does Nella want to talk about anxiety disorders? And for a long time, I never admitted it to anyone, and I never talked about it, but I deal with anxiety a lot. I guess I should just start at the beginning. So probably about 12 years ago, I was at work. I was teaching music at a school. I was a music teacher there, and I told my boss, I was like, I really feel sick. Can I have like an extended lunch break so that I can go to see my doctor? They'll be able to see me. So they told me that I could do that, and I thought I had strep throat. And comes to find out, when I get there, I actually do have strep throat. But then not only that, I have my doctor standing around me and like 2 or 3 nurses. And I'm like, what's happening? What's going on? And they're like, do you feel dizzy? Can you see it? Like, do you understand what we're saying right now? And I'm like, yes, I'm only here because my throat's hurting. And I felt like I had strep throat, which I did have strep throat, but they're like, listen, your blood pressure is 241 over 141. If we don't get you help right now, you are going to have, you can have a stroke, you can have a heart attack. We can't let you leave here and drive, back home or whatever. So I was like, well, can I at least go to the hospital? And they were like, well, no, we're going to call the ambulance to come and get you. Like, what? So I called my mom, hysterically crying. At this time, I was living in Orlando. And that's where I was teaching at a preschool at the time, like I said earlier, the music teacher there or whatever. So my mom comes all the way from Palm Coast to Orlando to come and see about me. So basically, when I got there, they told me that I had chronic hypertension. Now, I had never dealt with high blood pressure or anything in my life like that, as far as, being diabetic or having high blood pressure, which I'm not diabetic. I do have high blood pressure though. So what was explained to me by my doctor is that, while I was in the hospital, they were trying to find medicines that would work well with me. And at this time, because it was so long ago, the only medicine I think that I can remember that they gave me was lisinopril, but I'm not sure what the other one was. Whatever it was, it counteracted with each other. And one of the side effects of that is developing anxiety, something that I never had before. I never worried about things. I never had a panic attack. Nothing. I didn't really worry about much of anything. So trying to understand what they were telling me was like crazy, because while I was in the, the hospital, I was telling them, they would ask me how I was feeling. My blood pressure did come down to a normal rate, which for blood pressure, what is considered normal is 120/80. So I was there for almost 2 weeks. They had gotten that down, but then I started just like having panic attacks, like back to back to back to back. And I didn't know what was going on with me. I don't know. They told me that I was just nervous about everything that was going on and that I would be fine. I just needed to calm down, and they had someone come in and talk to me and teaching me about breathing, through my nose and exhaling through my mouth. And so I was fine. Well, I continued to take these medications that they had me on for the blood pressure. And I'll never forget going to church the first time after being released from the hospital. And one of my friends at church came up to me and was like, "Nelly, you probably will never hear this again in your life, but you look pale." And I did feel like sick, but I just thought it was because I was coming off of, just the high blood pressure and them trying to find medicines that work well with me. And I was like, really? Because I do feel kind of sick. I don't feel that great, but I do feel well, and I did feel well enough that day to go to church. So fast forward to that afternoon, I want to say about 4 of my friends came over just to sit and visit with me. And at this time, I had purchased the blood pressure monitor, and I was like writing down what my blood pressure was. At this time, my doctor wanted me to do it every 2 to 3 hours throughout the day, so that when I came back from my follow-up, he could see what my blood pressure had been consistently. So I'll never forget just taking my blood pressure, being completely fine, laughing, talking with my friends. We had cooked dinner, we were hanging out, and then all of a sudden I was sitting on my couch, and then out of nowhere, like just this flood of worry just engulfed me. I don't know about what. I can't even remember about what. All I know is I was so worried and it engulfed me. I didn't know why. And then I just started to panic and hyperventilate to the point where my hands were like this, like clams. And I couldn't open my hands. My feet, my toes were like spread apart like this. And I couldn't move. And I was just like trying to gasp for air. And my friends could see, like, oh my gosh, he can't breathe. And then all I remember is passing out. They called 911. By the time the emergency got there, I had come back to, and it was kind of like a haze. I don't know what happened at that point. So they take me on the ambulance back to the hospital. And while I was there, they explained to me that what I was experiencing was anxiety and panic attacks. So they explained to me that when you have worries about something, whether it's in the front of your mind or in the deepest parts of your subconscious, you begin to panic about what's happening. So when you have a panic attack, you begin to hyperventilate, and when you breathe fast, like, basically your body is not getting enough oxygen in the bloodstream. So when that happens, your muscles, they're not getting what they need. And that's why my hands clamped up like little clam hands, and my feet were like this. And then your throat also is the muscle. So when that closed up on me, that's why I passed out. And it made complete sense. I was like, oh, okay, so what do I do? Where do I go from here to learn about this disease that I have now, because it's classified as a mental disease? What do I do with it? Because I've never dealt with anxiety before or panic attacks. I don't know at that time, I know anybody in my family that had dealt with it. So I just started doing a lot of research, and my friends were real key at that time in helping me to understand how to beat this and how to cope with it. I do remember my doctor trying different like antidepressants and medicines for anxiety. What we settled on and what I've been on for now the past 12 years, I want to say it's been 12 years, is Zoloft. Zoloft has helped me tremendously. Like, I don't panic as much as I used to. I know one of the things the doctor explained to me was that my brain was not creating enough serotonin for me to just, and I hate to use the word normal, because everyone's normal is something different. But to just, I guess, like better words, just to be normal. So before I figured out how to govern myself and how to deal with what my body was experiencing, I did research and I had to learn what is it that I need to do other than taking the Zoloft once a day. And then I will tell you, they did prescribe me Xanax to take once a day, and it's usually, I take it usually at night if I need to have it, because there's sometimes where my brain will just race and race and race and race and race, and it won't stop. I can't shut it off, and I just, oh my gosh, on the inside I feel like I'm crumbling. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't know how to deal with this. Sometimes it'll come in forms where my heart will just race, and I can literally feel my heart with my hands. If I did like this, I can feel it through my chest, and it's anxiety just trying to engulf me. So I've learned to cope with anxiety, that it helped me to get my mind off of it. So one of the biggest things I've learned when I start feeling that way is to not sit there and let it overtake me, if that makes any sense. Just like sitting there and thinking about whatever is worrying me over and over and over and over and over again. I get up, and sometimes when I'm having really bad anxiety, I'll clean. Like, I will just, my husband is like, oh wow, because usually I don't clean like that. But if my anxiety gets real bad, I'm talking about like a serious deep cleaning, moving stuff out of the way, using straight bleach on everything, and just like scrubbing. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I've learned for me, Nella, that if I'm cleaning like that, it helps me, and it works. And I do it long. If I do it long enough, I find myself not worrying about what's happening, and the panic attack pretty much goes away. Another thing that I've found that works, I don't know why, but it does for me. I will go and buy peppermints, and I really like the green and white ones, but the red and white ones work too for me. Again, okay, well, not again because I hadn't said this yet, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what will work for you or that you should do this because I'm not a doctor. I am just a person that is telling my subscribers what I've been through and what I found to work for me. So I would literally buy the big bags of peppermints. I don't know if like y'all had grandmothers and stuff and they have like a purse full of like mints. At one point I was I was that person. But I would chew mints like back to back to back to back. And I don't know what it did, but for whatever reason, I found out one day when I started just chewing the mint, it relaxed me. Another thing that I do, since I, found out about that, I was like, well, maybe I can find it in a tea form. So I did. I found mint tea and I mix it with chamomile tea and I use like honey in it, and I just drink that. And while I'm drinking that, I'll usually like sing, or writing helps me as well. Another thing that I'll do, and I know this sounds absolutely insane, but in my beginning stages before I got to the point where I am now, where I can function and I feel like I have a good control over it, is back then, while I was chewing those mints, I would go in the bathroom and turn the water on as hot as I could take it and just let it run on my hand. I don't know why that worked. It just did. Another thing I did was pray a lot. I asked God a lot. Please, please just help me. Please just take this away. It just worked for me. These are things that I tried that worked for me. And I just wanted to share them with you. A long time, I didn't tell people that I have anxiety. Because the first thing that I felt people would do would judge me and say things like, she's crazy, or, something is wrong with her. All the stigmas that come along with having a mental illness that I don't want, that I'm not making myself have, and that was given to me by two medicines that counteracted with each other. But for a long time, I just didn't say anything about it, and I suffered in silence. So I decided